Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
So while I'm going to turn the show over to Ron here in a second, but I just want to introduce him to you.
Yeah, well, come out here, John.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah, no
love
problem.
Your man, man.
Yeah, so setting up the camera down right now is Ron Hurd. I've been really fortunate to get to know Ron over the last couple years. What brought us together was sort of the love for Memphis jazz and the love for what this man created. I'm not going to say too much more about that. I'm going to let Ron do that. But Ron is he's a champion of the legacy of music. We All Be Radio is his internet video channel. Look it up on YouTube. Look up his website. Ron is also an amazing artist. You see the painting on his show. That's his work. He's done. He's put some books out. That's a combination of visual art and stories about both Jimmie Lunceford and James Reese Europe, who's another really fascinating person. Earlier than that, one of the first band leaders, black band leaders, to go into Europe and to bring
from your hometown.
But yeah, from Mobile. So yeah, to bring this music to the world more broadly. But this is Jimmie Lunceford's birthday. We're here to celebrate his birthday in the rain. We've been doing this every year for the last couple of years. Last year, Andre Moore and Marcus Tate came out here with me as a part of the year, and we did it ourselves. And so as we were planning this out, it happened to be in the same week. It's like, we're talking about Memphis music. Let's make this a part of this and sort of share this with Ron. He does a tremendous job. And Callie Hurd is his mom. Not only this, but they also played a very important role in getting a historical marker in the National Cemetery, which is off of Jackson, honoring the victims of the Fort Pillow Massacre. So they were part of a group. There's now a historical marker in the National Cemetery honoring the soldiers that were massacred at Fort Pillow by Nathaniel Bedford Forrest. So they do the good work, and that's why we're happy to be here with you today, Ron. So these are students from the Rhodes Institute for Regional Studies. Some music students, but students we just want to dig into Memphis, want to dig into this region in some deeper ways. They're here for 8 weeks doing research, doing creative projects, doing that. So let's teach you something today.
Teach y'all something.
Yeah.
Well, give yourselves a round of applause for being here.
Yeah.
It's raining outside, but the show must go on, as they say in show business.
Right.
You got something to show, you got something to say, share it anyway, regardless of the weather. Let's see. It's about 11:40, right?
Oh, that's when he died?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
This is not about. His death date was July the 12th up in Seaside, Oregon. I'll go over that in the presentation. Welcome everybody to the 117th anniversary observation of Jimmie Lunceford's birth. Jimmie Lunceford is the father, in my opinion, of Memphis music education. The first school band was started by G.P. Hamilton. I don't know if y'all familiar with G.P. Hamilton, but he was the principal at Quartet High School, which became Booker T. Washington High School. He started a band back in 1900, raising funds from the community and whatnot. But Jimmie Lunceford is considered the first high school band director for black schools in the city back in the 20s. Jimmie Lunceford was an interesting cat. He was born June 6, 1902, and outside of Fulton, Mississippi, in this community called Evergreen. Now, what's interesting about that community, this is a community where a lot of black folks own a lot of land. His folks own a lot of land. His grandfather owned several hundred acres of land. I went down to Fulton. They still own that land. His relatives own a lot of that land still. So it's fascinating going, but they don't know who he is. I talked to a guy whose mom was his first cousin. He's a prominent minister in that community. He had no idea who Mr. Lunceford was until they had a historic market dedication back in 2011 down in Fulton, Mississippi. So this is why it's so important to tell this history. The way that people stay immortal is by saying their names. When you don't forget a person, they live forever. And what's some phenomenal about Jimmie Lunceford, he believed in people. Now, Jimmie didn't grow up in the South. He grew up in Denver, Colorado. High times, right? High C notes, 420, all that crap, right? Yeah, okay. So his music teacher was a guy named Wilberforce Whiteman. He was the music superintendent for the Denver schools. He was a white man, hence his name Whiteman. I think it's a black folks named Whiteman. I don't know. I'm not sure. I never met him before. But anyway, what's interesting about this guy, he believed in educating all children regardless of their color. He believed everybody had a right to access a proper music education. So not only did he educate Jimmie Lunceford, who was a music prodigy, but also he educated Andy Kirk. Andy Kirk and Jimmie Lunceford became two of the most popular and important swing band leaders of the 30s and 40s. So not only that, his scion is Paul Whiteman. That's his son. This guy was a very popular swing band jazz orchestra leader of the 20s and 30s. He actually commissioned George Gershwin to do Rhapsody in Blue. So this guy has made an interesting contribution. So Jimmie went down south to Fisk University to get his education. That's in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, I always tell people that black history is stranger than science fiction. It's better than a Hollywood movie. His love interest, the person who stole his heart, was a lady named Yolanda Du Bois. She was the daughter of Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, who was also a Fisk man. He was the first black person to get a PhD at Harvard University, right? So his daughter fell in love with Jimmie Lunceford. Jimmie Lunceford was a very handsome, he was really Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, right? He was very athletic, very gifted musically, very highly intelligent. But Dr. Du Bois, even though he was a Fisk man, did not approve because he didn't like the fact that he was a jazz musician. See, jazz was considered rap. What rap is today, jazz was back at that time. Very popular music of the country, but not accepted by certain sectors of society for whatever reason. So this is what Dr. Du Bois did, right? He arranged a marriage with County Cullen for his daughter. County Cullen was the poet laureate of the Harlem Renaissance, right? So he was like the Tiger Woods of the Harlem Renaissance. You know what I'm saying? When Tiger Woods was like, clean, not tainted. But here's the thing. County Cullen was more in love with his best man than his woman. His best man was Harold Jackman, the finest man in Harlem. Google him. I don't know what, just Google him, look at his images. You can tell if he's the finest man in Harlem. I don't know. But they actually ran away to Europe together. So the marriage was a null. But Jimmie Lunceford, that was the love of his life. He never stopped loving Yolanda. She ended up dying in Baltimore, I believe. She was an English teacher in the school system in either 1960 or 61, but she had a daughter in her second marriage, right? So Jimmie, he go up to Columbia College, get his teacher certification up in New York, come back down south to Manassas High School. Now, Manassas is the first black high school, the first fully accredited high school for black people in Memphis and Shelby County. The honor of the first black high school goes to Portrait, which becomes Booker T. Washington. But what made Manassas different, it was a Rosenwald school. Are y'all familiar with the Rosenwald Foundation or Rosenwald School? Just Google that. I'm giving y'all homework right now. Take mental notes and ask John Bass. Right.
Ready, take notes.
But what it is they were fully accredited. I mean, they had from 9th to 12th grade. Manassas had that. And at that time, I don't believe Manassas or where it was at, North Memphis was not. That part of North Memphis wasn't North Memphis yet. So Jimmie Lunceford came down there. He was hired to be the English, Spanish teacher, football coach, baseball coach, anything but music, right? He was doing everything but music. But he also majored in sociology at Fisk University, and he truly believed that music, and Du Bois was the father of American sociology. He still didn't like Jimmie Lunceford. So he's the father of American sociology. But getting back to Jimmie, He believed that music could encourage pride in community, could develop self-confidence, could teach the kids discipline in order to be successful, not even if they were musicians, but to be successful in life. So that's what he did. He got permission on consent of the principal to do this, start going into the community to raise money and awareness to get instruments for the students, raise money from the community. So it was a community effort. And actually, he is credited to be the first person to teach jazz studies in a formal educational setting any place in the world. So just like a Disney movie, like think about Remember Titans, or Denzel is in his prime before American Gangster playing Jimmie Lunceford. This could be a great movie for Disney, I think. But anyway, so he do the jazz study thing. Then the band became known as the Chickasaw Syncopators. They were a very popular dance band in the city. They actually did radio promotion back in the day. Jimmie Lunceford, he would have been the king of social media. He knew how to utilize the radio, which was the social media today, to get the promotion out about his band. So by 1930, he took his best students and buddies from Fisk University, which included Edwin Wilcox on piano and Willie Smith, who's arguably one of the greatest swing band altoists of that era. You got the trifecta there. You got the triumvirate of you got Benny Carter and you got Mr. Johnny Hodges. Y'all know anything about Johnny Hodges and Duke Ellington? Panty dropper, right? Mr. Rabbit. And you got Willie Smith. That's the three-headed monster when it comes to alto sax playing of the swing era, right? So by 4 years later, 1934, they get gig at the Cotton Club in New York, right? They took over as the house band at the Cab Calloway. Mr. Howdy, howdy, ho, eat. Then Duke Ellington don't mean a thing if they got that swing. So they took over for that, became very popular because of the radio broadcast from the Cotton Club. So you got people like Horace Silver, Miles Davis, Quincy Jones. These cats are listening to Jimmie Lunceford playing from the Cotton Club and being inspired. This is their music hero, And so Jimmie Lunceford his orchestra became the #1 attraction at the Apollo Theater for a whole decade. You think about how many legends come out the Apollo Theater. This is the #1 attraction for a whole decade at the Apollo Theater. This guy was more popular than Count Basie and Duke Ellington. He was considered the greatest of them all. Glenn Miller, if Jimmie Lunceford was Magic Johnson, Glenn Miller's Larry Bird. Because Glenn Miller had a lot of respect for Jimmie Lunceford. Jimmie Lunceford had a lot of respect for Glenn Miller. Glenn Miller said, Duke is great, Count is remarkable, but Jimmie tops them both. He's the best. And the thing what made him best, he put the show at Showtime. He's one of the first bands to have tailor-made suits. He's one of the first bands, he did choreography. They danced, they told jokes, they sang. The trumpet section would throw their trumpets up in the air in unison and catch them and play what they left out there. It was all about precision. So they was known as the trained seals because of their discipline and their presentation. And Jimmie Lunceford, man, it was amazing because sometimes they'll have upwards to 40 to 50,000 folks at some gigs. Dancing, this dancing. Also, he was known as the king of the Battle of the Bands because he would constantly beat the other people in cutting contests. I'm talking about Chick Webb. I'm talking about Duke and Count. I'm talking about some of the top of the top shelf. Not that ramen noodle stuff, ramen noodles. I'm talking about top shelf. He was beating them on a consistent basis. And what it made it spectacular because the black bands wanted to beat him at the Battle of the Bands, but the white bands wanted to beat him like Glenn Miller because he had distinctive two-beat sound. There's a two-beat sound he had. If you listen to Jimmie Lunceford's music, it's very distinctive from Duke. Duke was not a territory band, so to speak. Jimmie Lunceford guys, they was out there riding the Chitlin circuit, so he had to play to the black audience. That really what honed him in. Kind of like Count Basie. He's from Red Bank, New Jersey, but he went to Kansas City and got hooked up to that territory band, Benny Moten. I don't know if y'all know who Benny Moten was, but basically he gifted. Benny Moten was like, y'all like that Illuminati stuff, right? Benny Moten was blood sacrifice, so Count Basie could have his band. He died, he was getting some type of dental work done. And I talked to the old heads in Kansas City, right? They said, never sleep with the wife of the man who's gonna perform surgery on you. Put it like that. And that's what happened. He had tonsil. He got his tonsil taken out, and he died. Unless he was sleeping with the man's wife who did the surgery. That's Benny Moten. That's another story. I'm sorry for sidetracking. Let's get back to Jimmie Lunceford. It's a very interesting story. But, people paid for their sound. Like Cy Oliver, one of the Dorsey brothers paid Cy Oliver, Jimmie Lunceford's top arranger, $5,000 a year just to get their sound. And what made Jimmie Lunceford interesting too was because he was an aviation pioneer. He took plane lessons back in 1939, right? 1940, he buys his first plane for $20,000 during the Great Depression. That's like, whatever 2019 money is, but he paid $20,000 for that plane back in 1940 during the Great Depression. So this man was making money, right? But he always gave back. When he used to come to Memphis, he'll sell out church auditorium, but he always made his trek back to North Memphis. So Manassas High School did free music concerts for the kids, musician clinics. One of his fans and admirers was a guy named Mr. Emerson A.L. Jr. His folks are buried over here. He's buried somewhere else. But he used to love performing for Jimmy and them in the Rhythm Bombers. He played the Manassas High School band known as the Rhythm Bombers. And Mr. A became one of the greatest music educators this city has ever produced. A fine musician, a great Renaissance man, a calligrapher, a visual artist. He actually had Isaac Hayes in his high school band to kick them out. Ended up working for Isaac Hayes as Stax did. Watch Stax did a lot of arranging, a lot of great names. And what Mr. Abel did too was he co-founded the Southern Heritage Classic in his living room with Fred Jones. He actually created the first logo. So this was a guy inspired by Jimmie Lunceford to embrace this musical track and become a humanitarian like Jimmy. And what Jimmy did, because we had Nipsey Hussle die recently, and people talking about his humanitarian and his philanthropy. Jimmy was already doing that. He actually would start music education programs throughout the country to keep black kids out of trouble and to instill self-esteem and discipline in the kids. Before he died, he was looking for a real estate to start a retirement community for black musicians. So this guy was forward-thinking. Like I said, he majored in sociology at Fisk University. He was a very forward-thinking cat. Now, unfortunately, July 12, 1947, Seaside, Oregon. A lot of people don't know that Oregon had in its constitution back in 1859 that a black person could not live or work or own property in Oregon, in the state of Oregon. So what y'all think about Mississippi is actual Oregon. Because Mississippi didn't have that in their state constitution. That was Oregon. That's out of the Pacific Northwest. So Jimmie Lunceford was a very proud black man. He's very confident. He didn't believe in second-class treatment. Allegedly, now I don't, this is part of the legend. Allegedly, his restaurant called Number 10 restaurant up in Seaside, Oregon, refused to serve him and his men hamburgers. He got into an argument with the management. The management said, okay, let's go ahead and serve them roast beef sandwiches. This before Arby's. They didn't have the right meats. They didn't have the meats. Arby's was created in 1964 up in Ohio. So this is Seaside, Oregon, 1947. So they got the roast beef sandwiches. Jimmy was signing autographs at this music shop. He dropped dead right before his last gig, right? His men did not know he was dead till towards the end of the set. And when they found out, they was throwing up themselves and going to the restroom, doing all types of combinations of 1s, 2s, and 3s from eating the sandwiches, supposedly. So he actually died from this. They said it was a heart attack. Who knows? Some people think he was poisoned because of racism. So he was just 45 years young. He had 2 funerals, one up in New York City where the entertainment who's who came out, kind of like what they did at the Staples for Nipsey. He had like Pearl Bailey and Bill Bojangles Robinson, Sammy Davis Jr., people like that came out to pay their respects. Then he had a funeral here in Memphis where 5,000 black and white fans paid their respects to Jimmie Lunceford. And he's buried here in Elmwood. Now, there's an interesting story I want to connect. Y'all familiar with the Whalens, right? Like the first family of music in Memphis, kind of like the Whalens are what the Memphis, what the Marcelluses are to New Orleans, so to speak, if they could make their claim. H.D. Whalum, the patriarch of the Whalum family, was great friends with Jimmie Lunceford. He also was a singer. He sung at Jimmie Lunceford's funeral, and on the way home, he died in a car accident. So that's a connection with Lunceford and the Whalum family. And, we're just trying to remember Jimmy. He's not that well known in the city like he should be. He's the jazz part of the Memphis story is not always well told. But I mentioned Miles Davis earlier, right? He was a fan of Jimmie Lunceford. He actually wrote in his autobiography about all the sidemen he was getting from Memphis from one particular school. He said, I got, George Coleman coming through, Frank Strozier, Harold Mayburn, Booker Little. They all came from the same school. What they doing down there? I don't know Miles ever realized that his music he wrote started that tradition at Manassas. And now that, he had like, Harold Mayburn, like I said, Frank Strozier, Charles Lloyd, George Coleman, Hank Crawford. They all came out in the 50s, and the band director at the time was a guy named Matthew Garrett, who was the father of Grammy Award-winning artist Dee Dee Bridgewater. Dee Dee Bridgewater was born in Memphis, but she was raised in Michigan. So you had that talent. I'm not even talking about, you look at Booker T. Washington High School. Look, Maurice White, the founder of Earth, Wind & Fire, came out of Booker T. Washington High School. the mother of gospel music, Lucy Campbell, taught at Booker T. Washington High School for decades. Johnny Ace, obviously the first rock and roll star, his birthday is on June the 9th. He came out of Booker T. Washington. So I'm just talking about this one school, Manassas, where they also produced an opera singer named Vera Little. But they did all this one school. I'm not talking about a city like New Orleans. Memphis is one of the most important jazz cities in the whole country. You got more musicians per capita in Memphis than any place in the country. But the story about the jazz need to be told. You know, like, for example, we did a thing about Charlie Parker last night. A lot of people don't know that Charlie Parker's dad is from Memphis. You know, the old timers say he was conceived in Memphis, but he was born in Kansas City. You know what I'm saying? Bird. But, you know, Miles Davis said again, he said, four of the most important words in jazz history is Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker. And let me do a quick thing about Louis Armstrong, because something about Louis Armstrong, like, he's really the father of American music, as far as I'm concerned. Modern American music, he set the stage. Well, there's a black woman from Memphis named Lil Harder Armstrong. She was born here February 3rd, 1898 in Memphis, Tennessee. I think she was trained by Julia Hooks on piano. She went to Fisk University as well. And she ended up moving to Chicago with her family. And she ended up becoming the pianist for Louis Armstrong mentor, King Oliver. Now, King Oliver called up Louis Armstrong from New Orleans to come play with him. And then Lil could recall, I'm reading here and Lil talk about this. He said he was little. Ain't nothing little about him but his clothes. He was so country and got the bangs. Oh my God. Her favorite trumpet player was a guy from New Orleans, was a classy dude named Freddie Kemper. Man, Freddie Kemper was a bad cat, was a trumpet king behind Buddy Bolden that started it all, right? So she started listening to Louis, and she started noticing, hey, that in the recording studio, Louis Armstrong had to stand back 20 feet from everybody else because he was so loud and commanding with his presence and with his sound. And then King Albert told Lil one day, you know what, Lil, that boy would never be great. He don't got the confidence to leave me, King Oliver. He don't have the confidence, Lil. You know how women be thinking. I ain't gonna, you know, women be, I'm gonna upgrade him. I see some potential in Louis. I'm gonna change his ways. That's what she did. She gave King Oliver his walk-in papers, and she changed his wardrobe, got rid of the bangs, stopped booking them in gigs. Actually sent him to New York to play for the great Fletcher Henderson, who basically started the jazz orchestra. He's the father of the jazz orchestra. This guy's from Georgia, trained to be a chemist, not a drug dealer, but a chemist. Not that type, legal drugs, right? Not no freeway Ricky Ross stuff. But he ended up getting into music. He played piano, so he did a jazz orchestra. So they was at the Rosedale Ballroom. So Louis came there, but the top trumpet player in New York City at the time was a cat named Johnny Dunn. Guess where he was from? Memphis. He was from Memphis. He was in W.C. Handy Band. So also in Fletcher Henderson Orchestra was a cat from Memphis, a badass clarinetist named Buster Bailey. He was playing for W.C. Handy. You know, all these connections to Memphis. So keep on running to the Memphis cats. So Lil said, I think you did a good job, Lil. Congratulations. Now bring your book back to Chicago. Come back to Chicago. She got a banner that said world's greatest trumpet player. Book him another gig. No, I'm gonna tell you interesting. Another thing, Louis used to play the Vendome Theater in Chicago, led by Erskine Tate. It was a very popular music orchestra. Erskine Tate is from where? He's from Memphis. He played for W.C. Handy. Yeah. So all these cats from Memphis helping Louis become who he became. And she organized some of the most important American recordings in American music history. The High 5 and High 7 recordings. That basically was the Rosetta Stone for American music. It set the table with the scat singing, with the trumpet playing. She even played piano on some of the records and stuff like that. So it's so much we owe to Lil, because Louis was married 4 times, right? His first wife was a prostitute named Desi Parker. Used to throw bricks at him when she got mad. So if his first wife was a prostitute, what was Louis Armstrong? Lucky, I guess. Second wife, Lil Harder Armstrong. She's the architect of his career, the upgrader of Miss Memphis. Third wife was a gold digger named Alpha Smith. I ain't gonna say she a gold digger, but she ain't mess with no one. That's his third wife. Fourth wife was a sister named Lucille Campbell. Her name was Lucille, like B.B. King's Lucille. She was one of the first dark-skinned chorus girls at the Cotton Club, which was a breakthrough. She was a very beautiful woman, and she became the homemaker for Louis. Brought his home up in New York. You ever go to Queens, go to Louis Armstrong house. It was amazing. So, but his second wife was one that really put him on the map. So when he died in July 6, 1971, she got the ride in the family car during the funeral, right? So on August 27, 1971, during a televised concert of Chicago, she was playing St. Louis blues at the piano for Louis Armstrong. and she dies on stage. So that's a little bit, but it's so much to Memphis music history that y'all should be able to appreciate. Even this community, like the Soulsville, right? The first all-black Hollywood talkie Hallelujah was filmed here in this community back in the 20s by a white man from Galveston named King Vidor. He got an Oscar nomination for that movie, and it introduced the world to the woman, the first black Hollywood sex symbol known as either Nina or Nina Mae McKinney. Nina Mae McKinney, the first Hollywood sex symbol of color. This is before Dorothy Dandridge and all this stuff. So there's so much I can say about Memphis and all this stuff. Y'all have any questions or y'all want to say anything to wrap it all up?
Be a quiz later, y'all.
Be a quiz, okay. And also some documents. This is so important that we control our narrative, because these stories will never be told. You know, these stories, people talking about blues and rock and roll. James Brown, look up some James Brown stuff on the internet. James Brown grew up in the whorehouse, just like Louis Armstrong. His mama was a prostitute, grew up in the whorehouse. Richard Pryor, grandma was a madam, grew up in the whorehouse. Some of our greatest artists came out of the whorehouse. You understand? Or Robert Church, we're going to celebrate his birthday June 18th. Big real estate guy. You know how he made a lot of his money? Owning real estate with houses of prostitution. But he saved the city. Nothing wrong with that. You know, that's another story. Ain't we talking about prostitutes and Jimmie Lunceford? Jimmie Lunceford was a clean guy. He didn't drink, smoke, or swear or anything like that. So with that said, I think it's important for y'all to record this history, to talk to the old folks in your community, to get this history down, and also tell it from your own perspective. So they get lost in the sauce sometimes. You got all this social media stuff going on, a lot of distractions, stuff like that. But tell your own story on your own terms and don't apologize for it. So I thank y'all for y'all patience. So let's get to the replay. Anybody want to do this?
Any
volunteer?
Playing. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. What's your name? Sydney. Go the road. All right. Rise, sister, rise. Get that. So y'all got the hold in. Somebody hold in. And it's all. Go to red. Oh boy. This is the hook. Yeah, this is the hook right here. Yeah. So y'all get over here. We're gonna make it happen. Give yourselves a round of applause.
Right.
Out with the old, in with the new one. Thank you. So anybody got anything? Anything? Nothing. Y'all got nothing for me.
Hey, Ron, tell us about the arranger of Dixie who's also buried in...
Oh, I wish I was out in Dixie. Hell no. Herman Frank Arnold, right? Not that far away from here. This is why it's so important. The history is so important. Also, Nathan Bedford Forrest was buried here originally. The first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, the general behind the Fort Pillow Massacre, prolific slave trade. He was buried here. That was a part of his last will, to be buried among his men. But they moved his remains on Union Avenue, where he's at right now, back in 1904, I believe. But Herman Frank Arnold was the co-composer of Dixie. Y'all familiar with Dixie, right? I wish I was on Dixie. Not me. That's not part of it. I'm just saying that part. But he actually was, there's so many composers credited with the Dixie theme, but he's a co-composer. And what made him unique is that he played Dixie at the inauguration of Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, down in Montgomery, Alabama. He actually was there playing Dixie for the inauguration of Jefferson Davis. That was the first chapter of the Confederacy before Richmond, was Montgomery, Alabama. So there's a lot of music here, a lot of music buried here, a lot of legacy here. To me, history is not about the blame game. It's about just stating the facts and letting them fall where they may. But also, I really do believe that myths are just as important as facts, and that lies also reveal as much as truth when it comes to history. So really, history is a form of propaganda. It could be weaponized like anything else. And my thing is, that's why it's so important for y'all to control y'all narrative and tell these stories, and tell them in new ways.
Thanks, man.
I thank y'all for coming out. And the rain hold up. It's supposed to be like a monsoon right now, but it held up. But also, Robert Church is buried right there at that mausoleum at the corner. His birthday, June 8th. That's the guy that saved Memphis. During the Memphis massacre, he was shot in the head, point blank range, in his saloon on Beale Street. Several years later, he ended up saving Memphis from the yellow fever epidemic when it lost its city charter. So Robert Church is like one of the most important people in Memphis history. So it's the bicentennial year, so y'all can pay y'all respect to Robert Church up there. It's the mausoleum right there. We're in the money. We're in the money. He was the first black millionaire of the South. His daughter was Mary Church Terrell. She was an activist like Ida B. Wells. Memphis is a phenomenal place. Let me just tell y'all a little spiel. I have to go home and eat y'all lunch or whatever. This is the birthplace of modern America. Make no mistake about it, folks. Holiday Inn was birthed here. The first Holiday Inn over here on Summer Avenue, August 1st, 1952. Tennessee Williams did his first play in Memphis back in 1931. Richard Wright, one of the great American novelists, grew up in North Memphis for a little bit. The first supermarket in history, Piggly Wiggly, was birthed here September 1916. Thomas Edison worked here for a little bit. Even the Klan, hey, the Ku Klux Klan. First Grand Wizard, Nathan Bedford Forrest. Albert Pike, the founder of the Klan. He's not even from the South. He's from Boston. And he was a Confederate general, right? Over Cherokee Indians. He was over the Cherokee Indians. The Cherokee Indians were one of the civilized tribes that owned slaves. You don't talk about that. So he was a Confederate general. This guy was like a cross between Paul Bunyan and Santa Claus. Just 6 feet something, 300 pounds something, big old beard. But he was a Scottish Rite third degree Mason, and he was the leader of the Democratic Party. The Democrats invented the Klan. The Democratic Party, he was the leader of the Democratic Party in Shelby County back in the 1860s. So he was well aware of Nathan Bedford Forrest, who also was a Democrat and was a delegate for the 1868 convention, Democratic Convention. So the founder of the Klan and also the first Grand Wizard used to live in Memphis back in the 1860s. And actually, you look at this spot in Union Avenue where Nathan Bedford Forrest is buried, right across the street is the Scottish Rite building. I don't know what that's about. I used to go to the Nathan Bedford Forrest birthday parties for 3 years. And it's actually like, what is the significance of the Scottish Rite building across from Nathan Bedford Forrest? There's no significance. Nathan was an odd fellow. I said, yeah, he was an odd fellow. But y'all don't want to understand just how powerful this is. Nathan is just as important as anybody else in Memphis history. You can't erase him. Because right across the river is a place called Forest City, Arkansas that he founded. That's majority black and where T.I. spent some of his time doing that gun charge stuff, the rapper. So you can't escape the power. And not only that, there's a 2,500 acre state park named under Nathan Bedford Forrest. You got a 2,500 acre state park named in his honor. You talking about some statues? That's how deep this is. So I'm gonna leave y'all with that. Ron's a racist. I'm just telling y'all what it is. I ain't no racist. I didn't make the rules, but thank y'all for coming out, and feel free to take pictures.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I learn something every time I hear you talk, which I appreciate so much.
Thank y'all for coming out.
So I'll share the link to his YouTube channel, like a lot of the stuff, like going to the Nathan Bedford Forrest birthday parties. That's all on his website, which is amazing. He also met and spent a lot of time with Dick Gregory, and so a lot of that's on there as well. So I'll share that out with them.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I want to take a group picture of y'all.
Yeah. Let's take. Hey, y'all. Sorry. Can we get a picture real quick?
I know I got umbrellas. I'll get y'all way.
We're already out here. Let's just go and do it.